Hello guys, and welcome to my first review that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to talk today about two short story collections. I have one by Pohl, Day Million, and one by H.P. Lovecraft, The Doom That Came to Sarnath and Other Stories. I will say there will be a couple of spoilers in this review. I think it's inevitable with short stories. I hope you enjoy, and if you like the video, make sure you like and subscribe. Day Million by Pohl with this awesome cover by Ian Robertson. There's not a lot of information about this cover artist, but he's done a couple of Pohl covers. I don't know if you can see it right now. It's kind of sunny. And I'm going to talk about the title story first. Day Million concerns two very futuristic protagonists, Dora, a transgender amphibious woman, who meets Dawn, a cyborg that works on a spaceship and has replaceable parts. They meet, marry, and part ways forever. Not before exchanging their mathematical code, which after that, they can mate for life virtually via a machine. The writing style of this short story breaks the old rule of show and don't tell, which happens a lot in short stories where the narrator is just info dumping. And since it's a short story, you kind of are just left with all this information. My favorite part about the short story was the nifty approach to post-humans in the future. I think it had some very advanced themes for its time. Themes that weren't getting really talked about very much in the 1960s. This book was written in 1966, and it covers things that were very taboo back then. And I think Pohl has a good way to maneuver around these things. Overall, I think the story is really good, but it lacks substantial context, whereas you feel like you're just getting to know the characters and then everything happens so fast. And I think that's just common for short stories. I'd recommend reading this one and on to the next one. The next story is Schematic Man. It was first published in 1968 and first appeared in a 15th anniversary edition of Playboy. The story follows a computer programmer who makes a computer model of himself. I feel like in this story, you can kind of guess where it's going. He eventually does the Turing test on the computer model, and he begins to feel that the computer model is indistinguishable from him, and thus starts having questions of, what is real? Am I a computer simulation? It really dips its toes into simulation theory, and it's very advanced for its time. I will say the prose in this is way too self-aware for me. It's very quippish, and I think it ruined part of the story because the narrator is so annoying. I definitely recommend it, and I'll leave a link below to somewhere you can read it for free. I think it's a must read, but it's also not completely enjoyable. In this next one, I think it's appropriate to shout out Perfect Bean, because Small Lords, these little aliens are smaller than beans. The story follows two humans who crash land on a planet where they are overpowered and subjugated to slavery by miniature aliens called midges. Yep. These aliens are very reminiscent of Jonathan Swift's Lilliputians from Gulliver's Travel. I like this story a lot. I think it's satirically written. What I like about this story is its witty take on the first contact trope and the reversal of power dynamics, whereas the humans are the ones being subjugated to slavery by a miniature race of aliens. I think it's very satirical. I highly recommend it. It's a fun read. It's a little bit longer form than a short story. I think it's more of a novelette, but it definitely I think it's rewarding, and it has some good lines, and it brings up a lot of discussions of how would we treat them compared to how they treat us. And I think they're doing exactly what we would do. The next story is my favorite one in the book, so I would like people to read it. It's called It's a Young World. It was written in 1941 and published under a pen name. It was, I believe, James McCrae. The story is a very straightforward, like, pulp adventure story, but it has a very sci-fi ending. And I think it's a good ending because you don't see it coming, which was kind of what happens with a lot of these short stories, is you kind of can guess what's going to happen. With this one, it's not so obvious. The story takes place in a regressed future where there is a pretty obvious lack of technology. This tribesman named Keith escapes his village with a girl and meets up with other tribesmen that have escaped their villages. And they're all on the run from a common enemy who is unknown to them, that's lurking and conspiring against them. And I don't really want to spoil the ending much because it would ruin the whole fun of the book. I will say it doesn't read like sci-fi in the beginning, and I think that's what I like about it, because it takes you by surprise. And the second book we're going to be talking about today is The Doom That Came to Sarnath by H.P. Lovecraft. Got some really good stories in here. Most of them are horror, but I feel like sci-fi bleeds through, and we're going to talk about that. So the title story of this book, The Doom That Came to Sarnath, was written in 1920. This story is a classic example of the kind of writing that I think Lovecraft is most well known for. It is about an ancient civilization of water lizards. Lovecraft was really into water lizards, or lizards in general, because they come up a lot in this book and in other books, I assume. Yeah, it follows an ancient civilization of water lizards. They live in a city called Ib, and their rival comes, invades their city, destroys it, and steals their land, which they cursed, obviously, because it's not a Lovecraft novel if something isn't cursed. And yeah, so these invaders, they make a civilization of their own. They call the city Sarnath, and there's a prophecy in the city that in a millennium, the water lizards of Ib will come back. I have good and bad critiques for this book. The good is that the prose is amazing. It's very ornate, and it uses very over-the-top language, which was typical of the period. Apparently, this is known as purple prose, which is very common in Lovecraft novels and short stories. The bad is I feel like these stories are often predictable, especially this first story. And that's not a bad thing, necessarily. I think if you read enough of a certain genre, you start being able to predict what's going to happen next. So not necessarily all bad. The next story we're going to talk about is Beyond the Wall of Sleep. This is a cosmic horror tale that deals with themes of human consciousness being able to transcend its physical limitations. The story follows a case study of Joe Slater, a psychopathic killer who is being studied by a hospital intern. Joe recounts these reoccurring dreams he keeps having of sharing his mind with a cosmic entity, and the hospital intern starts to believe his crazy delusions, which makes him look immature. But as time goes on, events that follow makes him believe that what is going through Joe Slater's mind is actually happening. This is a great example of the kind of cosmic horror that Lovecraft is known for. And it has a sprinkle of sci-fi in it. You know, obviously with the word cosmic, you immediately jump to sci-fi. but I think the horror aspect of this is still more eminent. I recommend reading this story. It's very short, but I think it really is a good introduction to cosmic horror. This next story is by far my favorite Lovecraft story I've read so far. The Walls of Eryx is a 1939 story that Lovecraft co-wrote with Kenny J. Sterling, and it was first published, I believe, in Weird Tales magazine. The story is written as a field report from a prospector on Venus named Kenton J. Stanfield. And this prospector is trekking through the jungles of Venus. Remember, this was written back in 1940s when they still thought that Venus was a jungle. Obviously, that's not the case anymore. So yeah, he's looking for crystals on Venus because apparently, like any valuable crystal, humans want to mine the crap out of all of them. Venus has a population of man lizards. Yes, like I said, Lovecraft really loves lizards. The humans that have already been to Venus have already labeled these man lizards as idiots. Like, they're very docile creatures, so they don't think that they're intelligent enough to even do anything about it. And the prospector is trekking through Venus in search of these crystals. He's stuck, and he realizes that these man lizards now don't seem so unintelligent. Apparently the crystals have some kind of religious significance to these man lizards, and I mean, you can guess where it goes from here. I don't want to spoil the ending. I think this is a really great science fiction Lovecraft story. It's where it marries horror and science fiction very well. I think the field report feels very nice. I like stories where it's the narrator writing down his thoughts, especially as he's going from feeling very confidently on a mission to the despair of being inside of this maze and not knowing the way out, and then coming to the realization that you undoubtedly mistook the intelligence of an alien species. The last story, I thought it was an honorable mention because I had no idea that Harry Houdini paid Lovecraft to ghostwrite a story for him. The story is called In Prison with the Pharaohs, and it was written in 1924. It follows Harry Houdini himself in Giza, where he meets a Bedouin and he goes to a boxing match on top of one of the pyramids. I'm not going to spoil it. I feel like people should read it. I think it's not a great story, but it's really funny, and it's definitely like what you would expect for an early 1900s pyramid Egypt kind of story. I recommend this book, and I will be reading other Lovecraft books. Next Halloween, I'm looking into reading some more.